Want to thank you guys for joining us today. Today we have our topic is student choice via boards and menus. And this is part of our student-centered series. So remember, we have two series going on. We have a blended learning series, which has 6 different topics. It gets alternated with our student-centered series, which also has 6 topics. So this is probably one of my favorite ones with student choice and via boards. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Kim Loomis. I'm going to apologize if you hear some background noise. I am sitting in an airport in Anchorage, Alaska today, and literally just got off a plane. But this was all prepped and ready to go for you guys, so I apologize if you hear that noise. I'm the former director for digital learning in Clark County School District down there in Las Vegas, Nevada. Of course, you guys know that's our largest district. It's actually the 5th largest district in the nation, but the largest district there in Nevada. I was a 10-year high school math teacher. I went from there from a professional development facilitator, did some district office, central office, did some school administration, did some high school reform management, millions of dollars of grants that we had there in Clark County, curriculum coordinator. But again, my last 10, 15 years was as the director for online and blended learning. And they say when you retire, which I did in 2019, you have to do something that you love. And I love this. I absolutely love this. And I love that you guys are all here with me today. And some of you have been here with me quite often because I believe this is number 8 of our series of a dozen. So thank you guys for coming back and bringing friends. I noticed we got some new faces too, so that's so awesome. I love it. Today's agenda, we'll start off with talking a little bit about student choice and what that looks like, and then we'll go right into some choice boards and menus, and then we'll start talking about designing choice boards and menus, because ideally the ultimate goal here is to get you to try one in your classroom, right? So this webinar will give you 1 hour of Nevada Department of Education professional development credit. But if you want to take this back into your classroom and do the workshop, and you've already all been enrolled inside the Canvas workshop, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, and you implement it in your classroom, you can earn another 5 additional hours. So that's just an opportunity. And if you don't want to do that and you just want to audit the materials in Canvas, it's there for you. So thank you for joining us. And I hope you find not only this webinar and informative, that you also find some really good stuff over in the extended workshop in the Canvas. So over in chat, what I'd like you to do is I would like you to think about how often do students have choice in the learning process. Today, I want to learn doing video. Today, I want to learn with reading. Today, I'd rather just sit back and listen to the teacher. So think about this. How often do your students have choice in the learning process? Is it often, sometimes, little, none? And go ahead and throw that up into the chat. Oh, 10%, good. Sometimes, I love it. Yeah, a little, sometimes. I will tell you, most of my kids didn't. I taught a lot in the 90s and the early 2000s, and it was like, Miss Loomis is going to do it this way, and maybe if we had a project, I would give them some choice in the project. So I totally get it. So today we're really going to talk about how to give students choice and what does it look like when we give students choice. So thank you for those of you that participated there in the chat. So when we think about student choice, and I'm talking about in the learning process, right? Not their choice of where they can sit or, who they want to sit with, but really choice in the learning process. What does that look like? Well, like I said, when I taught in the late 90s and the early 2000s, this is what my classroom looked like. It was a very traditional classroom. Okay, some of you know me, it probably wasn't towards the end of my career, but definitely at the beginning of my career. It was, I do something, I'll teach you a little bit about it, then we'll do something, we'll have them practice and they do it, and then we would do an assessment, right? So all this learning took place at the same time. Everybody was doing the same thing at the same time. All the students were reading the same short story. They were all doing the same math assignment in my classroom. There was one day that was dedicated to completing a test or a quiz, regardless if you were ready or not. If you were absent the day before, maybe I'd say, it's all right, because, we just kind of reviewed yesterday, or I might ask you to take it. That traditional classroom was really set up more for the passive learning. Like I said earlier, just sitting back and listening to the teacher and going through the motions. Well, student choice is where we start giving students ownership. We start having students think about, their role in that classroom. So there's this little bit of shift. we're still going to plan our lessons, right? We're still going to say what needs to get done. We're still going to deliver some content. We're still going to assign some activities and assess students, but it's going to be different. So that shift is going to say, look, what we're going to do is we're going to let students, we plan some lessons, but there's some choices here in that lessons. And the reason we're able to do that is because in today's world, now that we have one-on-one in our classrooms, we definitely we can partner with digital content. Love partnering with digital content. Myon, iReady, Khan Academy, Apex, all of those places that I can go to, even YouTube, so that I can make choices and have more choices instead of just me delivering all the content. Well, what that's going to do is it's going to force our students to take some responsibility in that learning. And that's what we really want them to do, is to take that responsibility so that they learn that they earn their grades. They're not given to them, right? And then they can really work with their peers and themselves to assess their abilities. Oh, I saw this great video the other day. I'll have to share it with you guys. It was about the Marzano checkings, but I'll share it with you. I'll put it in the announcements in the Canvas course. So when we think about moving from a teacher-centered course, instead of us providing all of the knowledge, now we're going to let our students do some of that construction. We're going to have them go into videos. We're going to have them do some reading. We're going to give them some different places where they can construct it. It's not just us giving it to them. So that changes them from a passive receiver to having to be actually active and engage in taking ownership in the learning, right? And so our role changes from that authoritarian, that leader in the classroom, where we're really next to and guiding and facilitating the learning process. I like to say we're just a lead learner in the classroom, because in today's world, there's so much knowledge out there. We don't know it all, but we can put some things together for them. When we did, the teacher-centered, it was more on obtaining correct answers. But what we really want to do is we want students to understand that it's okay to fail. Correct answers are good, but we learn a lot more when we fail. So if you think about Edison, who did hundreds and thousands of experiments before he got the light bulb, it's from all of those failures that he got to success. And we want our kids to learn that failure is not bad. It's just one way that we've learned, well, that doesn't work. So let's try another one. Oh, that didn't work either. So what we're doing is, instead of moving from test scores and mainly grades from those culminating assessments, we want a continuous self-assessment with some ongoing feedback. And that changes our culture. So instead of competing for grades, now we're collaborating. We're saying, oh, did you get that? How did you get that? So the student-centered, the student choice changes the way our kids are going to see our classroom. So start thinking about how and when can you change this to a student-centered situation. So when I talk about blended personalized learning, I have these 3 pieces. Now you got to remember, I was a high school math teacher for 10 years. So I like to put it in a little simple equation here. Y'all got lots of wisdom. So we want to take that wisdom, your standards, your kids, and we're going to add in the adaptability of technology, because technology is their world. And it's never going to go away. So what we want to do is embrace it and partner with it. So if we can take that wisdom that you have and add it with the adaptability of technology, then we can create this personalized learning space for students. And these 3 icons become really important: the teacher, the tech, and the student. So you'll hear me say oftentimes, I'll say it's a 1/3 equation. 1/3 of the time, and I don't mean every lesson, I mean over a unit of instruction, 1/3 of the time we want to release to digital content. Now, those could be videos, those can be books online, it could be all kinds of different things. It could be practice like IXL, but we want to release 1/3 of the time to digital content, where the kids are actually seeking learning from somebody outside of us. And 1/3 of the time, notice over there on the far right, we want to release the learning to our students, where they're working with their peers, they're being collaborative and supportive of each other. And then 1/3 of the time where we're on the stage and we are directing, because our standards are really deep. And sometimes it takes us, sometimes we can't find it in the digital content. And our standards are like level 3s and 4s in the depth of knowledge. And it's going to take us to get there. But if you look at this 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 equation, the hardest thing for teachers to understand is look at the 2/3 out on the wings there, that we're not on the stage. We're not directing. That's really student-centered learning. They're learning personalized individually on a computer, or they're learning with their peers. So what that does is it gives us 2/3 of the time to do teaching by walking around, which is my absolute favorite, where you can actually do some one-on-ones with your students and get to know them much better. So when we release the learning to our students, what we're doing is we're really building those SEL competencies, right? We're asking them to be able to self-manage. We're asking them to be responsible for their decision makings. And like I said, you're going to love the Marzano video. Definitely. I just saw it last night and I loved it. I thought, I gotta share this one. And the other one that we do is we change that 2/3 of the time where we're teaching by walking around, which is basically guide on the side. So we create this path to success with our lesson planning and deciding what activities and assessments we want to have. We can pull small groups. We can work one-on-one in that teaching by walking around, but we're releasing to our students. We're creating that student-centered learning environment 2/3 of the time. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to do some breakout rooms. And I want you to think about what is needed. What is needed when we release the learning to our students? Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you had some good conversations. Matter of fact, why don't you go ahead and use the chat and throw up some ideas that popped up over in your groups, because when we release the learning to our students, sometimes it's not pretty. I'll be honest with you, it takes a lot, right? Hopefully you had some good conversations on about what that looks like, because I will tell you, and again, go ahead and use the chat and throw some ideas that showed up in your chat, because it really comes back down to relationships, right? Students need clear expectations, layered curriculum. Yeah, you guys got some good stuff in here. Anchor charts, notes to refer back to. All of these things become really important. If we're going to release the learning to students, we're going to have to set some things in motion to make that happen. Thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate that. Because here's the belief. I believe that the core business of schools is relationships and learning. And I will tell you, relationships comes first, because I learned that kids will fail in spite of Miss Loomis. They don't like me. They're going to try to fail my class just to piss me off. And so I learned that it becomes really important to have these relationships with our kids. And when we have 2/3 of the time walking around and working with our students, that relationship just gets stronger, right? And if you have like social contracts and you have the right expectations, like we saw over in the chat, it does help to have that release, because they know where to go and how to go things. I've heard people use three, see three before me, so really helping students understand, what does it mean to self-manage? What does it mean to have self-control and to make choices? Because, some of our students, they may choose to do nothing, and we definitely don't want them to do that. So let's talk about differentiation and being able to help our kids via choice boards and menus. Now, I like choice boards and menus because it is differentiated, because I can find a kid that I know that they have a lower reading level, but I need them to read something about, the topic that we're dealing with. So I can give them a different reading text than I might give a kid that's got a higher reading level. So I can differentiate that using choice boards and menus. So that's what really helps me when we talk about differentiation. But before we get much further, what I'd like you to do is, usually it's at the top. Sometimes you're probably seeing something right now that says you're seeing Kim's screen. There's a place for you to annotate the screen. So just a background check. Have you ever used playlists, choice boards, or menus in your classroom? And if you have, you can throw a heart or a star, some type of stamp up there. And again, this is usually at the top. It's annotate. Sometimes it might be underneath your more, and then you'll see like a stamp that you can put there on the screen. I know some of you were with us when we did playlist. You tried them out in your classrooms. Yeah, big old circle there, Nate. I saw that. Patty, thank you for menus. Yeah, so we have some expertise. We go Fletcher there, Robin, good. Rosa, good, playlist, good. So good. You're not coming in with some background of like, I've never seen these before, so that gives me a little bit of idea of who's had what. And matter of fact, you'll see that the images that I've used here, and you might want to write down these bit.lys for my professional development. There are some examples of choice boards using my I3PD, which is what I consult underneath. And I've got activity 013, 012, and 011 if you want to look at these. And I'll pull up something a little bit later. Let me clear off the annotation. Thank you for those of you that participated. All right, so let's talk about what is a choice board or a menu. Now, the key thing here about a choice board and a menu is it provides choices. So like we said earlier, we give students choices. Like, let's say I want to read text. I like reading text. Or you can use video, or you can use teacher lecture, but you're giving the students that choice of where they want to go with that, right? It also fosters independence. So that's the nice thing too, is that it's going to foster that independence for your students. And this is the best thing that I absolutely love, is you can differentiate based on need. You know, you have some kids that are those mild kids that we might call our bluebirds, yellowbirds, or greenbirds. So when we can differentiate, not everybody's doing the same thing. We're not shooting over some kids' heads, and we're not boring other kids. So with choice boards and menu, we give this opportunity to empower our students. Remember, we talked about giving them choice, while ensuring that we've selected the activities that we think are important towards the learning goals. So that's when we think of choice boards, is I don't want you to think about it's a free for all. It's really us thinking about what activities meet the objectives that we want, and then having a variety for the kids to choose through. So when we think about that, I'm going to give you an example here. You guys may have seen this one. This one comes from Casey Bell in her blog, and it's also in our Canvas course. This is a variety. This is what she calls her Tic Tac Toe choice board. Notice there are 9 squares. And the way it's outlined here is there's a lot of instructional options that target those important goals. Now, notice she'll even shade some as blue and some as yellow. And she probably has in her classroom that says, you know, the blue are the more challenging, or maybe the yellow are more challenging, so that the kids know which ones are challenging, but they know they have choices. Now, in this particular one, notice the middle one, box number 5, is in that center of the board. And it's got a star on it because everybody has to do it. So even though we've given students choice, 9 different choices here, and we say you need to make a tic-tac-toe diagonally or horizontally or vertically, whatever the case, the kids get to make those choices. But in this particular board, they're saying that they have to do the center board. Now, I will tell you, there's some clues here. I love that she colored them, and I love that she numbered them. So if I'm a student in the classroom, I can say, hey, is there anybody who's working on box number 6? And we can get together and we can work on that. And so when you're designing your boards, think about some of the same stuff we did in our playlist, thinking about how can I get kids to figure out, you know, what's the best choice for them. And remember, if we're still teaching by walking around 2/3 of the time, we can go over and help kids get started. We know who our bluebirds are, and we might say, go do a blue box. We know who our, you know, our yellow birds are, and we might say, why don't we start with box number 7? That's a good choice for you to start, because oftentimes they just need some help before they get going. But it helps students to find the choices that appeal to them, right? And this, remember, the teacher has created all of the content here that's going to get those kids to those learning objectives, but the students are given control over their choices and what order that they get to complete them in. So when you think about creating a choice board or a choice menu, really what you're thinking about is, how can I introduce new content? And there's only 3 ways we can do it. You can do it as a teacher, and it's going to be the audio visual, you know, students listening and watching, right? Or you can do it via text with articles or books, right? So then we have students that are trying to absorb the learning through reading comprehension, or we can use multimedia. And there are so many things out there that we can borrow, like YouTube, Mayan, IXL. There's so many different places that we can borrow content on. So when you're making your choice boards, think about, where is it that I can get some content? So let me give you some examples, right? A menu really is exactly what it sounds like. It has 3 choices. It has an appetizer, it has a main dish, it has a dessert. I've seen people put 4 choices. Sometimes they'll put a side item on it, but basically there's a couple things in the menu what you can choose from. In the main dishes, just like when you go to a restaurant, that you can choose from. And then also we've seen the Tic Tac Toe board where you can have the 9 in a row or the diagonals. The one that we have here is ecosystems. So there's lots of different places to learn about ecosystems and show that learning as well. So when you think about how do I make one of these? Well, think about different ways that you can get content to kids. Right? So we're differentiating the instruction. How many different ways can I get content to the kids? And I'm not going to make all my boxes content. I want some of my boxes to have process. I want kids to be able to apply that new knowledge or practice that new knowledge, maybe as an individual or as a partner, but I really want them to practice it. But so I'm going to give them some choices on what practice looks like. So oftentimes I'll put that as like maybe the second or the third thing in my, think about our Learn, Grow, Show, right? I give you a little bit of content to learn, and then you get some process to put it in your classroom, and product is the show. It's really where we show that we've mastered or we're assessing the students' mastery of the content. Now, of course, the cool thing is you can differentiate from environment, but that can be done throughout. But think about when you're creating your choice boards and your menus that it needs to have content, process, and products in it so that you can have students to have choices in different ways. So you're thinking, okay, well, what do I put on a menu or choice board? Well, there's all kinds of things. They can watch videos, they can make a screencast, they can do side-by-side assessment, there's lots of different things. You can even have a quiz as one of the options in your choice boards or in your menus. So when you're thinking about what types of things do I want in here, there's lots of different places you can go. The 9x9 tic-tac-toe is a nice way to do it, but nobody says it has to be 9x9. Choice can be 2 things. So you can create a menu, and you'll see my Mexican menu in just a moment, that only has maybe 2, 3 things to choose from. And it might all be videos that they're choosing from. We want them to watch because it has all the information that we need into it. Or it could be a video, an article, or something online, or coming to the small group in my classroom where they're getting that content. So there's lots of different ways that you can put these different activities, right? Product, process, and content. I'm sorry, I missed that one in prop. So earlier I said, if you want to look at some of my playlist choice boards and menus, go ahead and write these down. These are a bit.ly. It's a lowercase I because, you know, capitals and stuff matter when you do bit.lys. 3PD, that is what I consult under. I consult under I3 Digital PD. And A, because it's an activity, 11, 011, 012, and 013. And you can use these as templates if you want to get an idea of what they look like. Matter of fact, if you just finished the data processing class with us, when I do that workshop face-to-face, I actually use that data processes choice menu over there, which is activity A011. So if you want to get a chance to kind of peek at some, you can do that, because we're going to go right to breakout rooms right now. And I really want you to think about how giving choice, either in a playlist or a choice board or a menu, how does that motivate your students when they're given choices, right? When they're given a choice and they're saying, oh, I have to do this. You'll notice even in the menu that you see there, the one that I have for data practices, if you're gone there, you'll notice the dessert is just one thing. There's no choice there. But the others have choice. And everybody says that it doesn't all have to be choice. We can designate something that we want everybody to do. So think through when you're designing your boards, and a board doesn't have to be a 3x3 grid. It can be 3 items. It can be 2 items. So think through what that's going to look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to breakout rooms right now. I'm going to try to go ahead and put us all back in the same rooms that we were at. And I want you to think about how might student choice change motivation in the classroom. Welcome back, guys. Looks like you guys had some good conversations. A lot of you stayed that last minute stuff. So I know that you did a lot of talking over there. So think through, what does it look like? And if you've got some ideas, you want to throw them up into chat, we would love to see it, because we weren't all privy to every room. Because choice can be a motivator, but also, just like we talked about in our earlier breakout, there's responsibility that goes with that. Yeah, there is more buy-in, but there's responsibility too. Great for differentiation. Love it. Yes, Rosa, totally agree. I love it. Yes, meeting the students' needs. You guys rock. You had some great conversations. I love it. Awesome. So let's talk about what does it look like to design? And if you weren't with us a moment ago, Nate had asked if I would throw my boards up into the Canvas course. They're currently not there. I will add those in there if you'd like to look at those. I do have some that I did make, but they're not my PD boards. They're more like for schools. So let's think about, what does it look like to design a board? Now, remember, keep in mind, yes, I've shown like a menu and I've shown like the Tic Tac Toe 3x3 or the 9 boxes. It doesn't have to be that big, guys. Okay, really, really doesn't. A lot of you already put choice when you did the playlist a while back. And that was a great way to put some choice into your classrooms as well. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can set those up. But the key is backwards design. No matter what, I don't care if you're building a lesson or if you're building a choice board or if you're building a playlist, we always want to figure out what is it that we want, the big ideas and skills, those desired results. And then we work our way down to the events. Too often, and this is where I can tell the difference between a novelist teacher and somebody who's had a couple of years of experience. Oftentimes our novelist teachers go right to the learning events. Oh, I want my kids to do this. I want my kids to do that. And it's like, wait, what's the concept you want them to learn? What is the culminating assessment that you want out of this so that they can show you that they've mastered or they've learned those types of things? So those big ideas come in before you start thinking about, oh, this video will work or this, book will work or stuff. So really think through that backwards design and how that looks like. Now, in the Canvas course, there are lots of different design options. All of these are examples that you'll find in the Canvas course. Here's one. You can see it comes out as a PDF or a paper document. That's just a menu, right? Hamburgers and fries. You can put all kinds of different things on that menu. There is the 9x9 Cassie Bell that we talked about, one that's there that you can possibly borrow. And if you've been doing choice boards for a while and you want to put them in Google Slides, oh my God, there's some really cool Google Slides that you can use on SlideMania and SlideGo if you have that tech background. But you don't have to, guys. I don't want you to struggle through the tech. I really want you to think through the process, the way that we can differentiate the learning and turn over the ownership to our students. But there's lots of different design options. But as you're designing, and that's why I love going back to the Cassie Bell one, is think about that single concept or learning objective you want to get across. Create easy to follow format. Tic Tac Toe is easy to follow because everybody's done it, but it could be 3 boxes, right? And you can have the kids make one of 3 choices on this board, right? It doesn't have to be a 9x9. You'll want to include other required items. Sometimes that's important, like on the Cassie Bell one here, the center box was required. And you've seen probably the may-dos and the must-dos, where students must do certain things before they can get to the may-dos. That's another example of choice as well. Numbering the boxes was really important for kids to be able to talk, right? And asking kids to shade or do something so you know what boxes they did, that becomes really important as well. So it guides the students as well as helps you when you come through and assess it. And color variation, just like you see here with the blue and the yellows, really help as well. So think through what your design tips, especially if you're going to do a board. But if you're going to do a menu, you've got your appetizers, you got your desserts, you got your main dishes. And if you want, you could throw in some side dishes there. But as you're doing that, I want you to really think about the differentiation. Keep it in mind. How many different ways can kids get content? How many different ways can they practice or process that content? How many different ways? And maybe you only want one way. Maybe it's just one quiz, or maybe it's just one assignment that you want them to show as an assessment to show the product. Remember, not everything has to be a choice. So when you're thinking through this, what do I want kids to have choices in, and what do I want to designate? Because when you think of types of choices, yes, there are some non-negotiables. These are things that everybody must do. Like we talked about in that Tic Tac Toe, the center star was the same thing that everybody has to do. And the may do, must do board. Everybody must do these 2 or 3 things, and then you may have a choice to do these afterwards. And so those are what we call our negotiables. They may say you only have to do 1 or 2 of those. So those are something like the appetizers in a menu. I have 3 different videos, and you have to pick one of the 3 videos. They all say the same thing. It was all about content, about using data in the classroom, if you go back and look at that menu board. And then there are some things that are just left as options. you can do one of these, and that might be in like our may do, must do list. So not everything has to be a choice. Keep that in mind. I don't want you to think that, oh my God, I'm letting my kids do everything. No, not at all. Matter of fact, you guys have been looking at choice boards, those of you that have been with me for a while, for a good long time, because guess what? Our Learn, Grow, Show really is just a choice board. You can choose what videos and articles you want to read and to learn about a concept, right? So you could set up something that only has something small, 2 options, 3 options. Not everything has to be. But right now, if you think about our Canvas course, those learnings are optional, right? Select 1 or 2 to kind of go through, and then grow. That grow is really the process. It's the practicing of the new learning. And you might ask them, hey, so learn something, and you can do it digital, or you can do it in a small group. Grow something, or to show me the process that you're practicing this new knowledge. And that could be independent or pair work, right? 2 options. I'm not giving them a whole lot of options here. And then the last one, the show, or what we would call the product, is the mastery or the demonstration, and everybody's going to do it. It's going to be a knowledge check. So notice how this choice board, 3 items, learn, grow, show. But in those 3 items, they only have 2 choices. In the learn one there, it's teacher group or digital. In the grow, it's independent or pair work. In the show, everybody's going to do this knowledge check. And guess what? If you have a little extra time, this is what I want you to work on. I want you to go work on iReady. So that's that may do at the end, right? Because we always want to give something for the kids to do at the end. So as you're thinking through what this looks like, there are lots of examples and templates inside the Canvas course. So think through what you want to do, and think of a concept that's coming up in your classroom that you want to give a little bit of choice to. So again, our extended Canvas workshop is a choice board, really, because there's lots of stuff in the learn so that you can learn more about this topic. And there's lots of other stuff inside the grow, but everybody's going to do the one product. Everybody's going to do the implementation if you're looking for those 5 additional hours. So when you think through some choice boards and examples, what I've done inside our course this time is I've created one guidance document. It's a 1-page document, because I've done a lot of talking and there's lots of stuff. Matter of fact, there's so much stuff in there. I've narrowed it down to just like, here's some of the essentials in this guidance document. And as Nate asked earlier, did I throw in the I3 examples? I didn't. What I did do is I created 3 additional other examples for you guys. And these are samples that are like in the menu. You can see there on the far side. And then you've got a 9x9 board, and then you've got a may do and a must do. And these are in the Canvas course, and you can use those as well as examples. So guys, we are on really webinar number 8. And so some of you have been with me a good long time. Those of you that are new, I hope you come back. We have lots more to talk about. And this is so fun. You guys are at the right point at the right time, throwing something into your classroom and helping your kids. Now, the one assignment, and that's right, there's only one assignment that you have to do for this particular course, is implementing it in your classroom. I want to thank you all for